Welcome to the Studebaker National Museum. The United States has always been a country on the move. From prairie schooners and wagons to carriages and cars, transportation is a central part of the American story. The Studebaker story started here in South Bend, Indiana in 1852 when brothers Henry and Clem Studebaker set up a blacksmith shop. From these simple beginnings, Studebaker soon became a household name, first in South Bend and then worldwide.
By 1890, the Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company was the world's largest maker of horse-drawn equipment, with a sales network spanning 6 continents. At the turn of the century, Studebaker entered the fledgling automobile market and became the only American company to successfully transition from horse-drawn to self-propelled vehicles. By 1911, Studebaker was the number 2 automobile manufacturer in the U.S.
Welcome back. In today's adventures, our travels bring us to the Studebaker Museum here in South Bend, Indiana. This museum houses the largest collection of presidential carriages, Studebaker's military vehicle collection, and many other vehicles that help tell the story of not only the Studebakers, but America's transportation through the years. Are you ready? Ready to go off the beaten path and go in the footsteps of history? Follow me. This wagon is the exact Conestoga wagon built by John Studebaker, built for his family's journey from Pennsylvania to Ohio in 1835, where they moved to Ashland, Ohio. Henry and Clem Studebaker built this 1857 Studebaker Phaeton, and it's the oldest surviving Studebaker vehicle. This is a depiction of the Studebaker's blacksmith shop. They opened on the corner of Michigan and Jefferson Street in South Bend in 1852. They would use their father's motto, which was always give more than you promise, as you see here depicted in the sign. The Studebakers stopped producing buggies in 1919, thus ending all horse-drawn vehicles. This is the last buggy manufactured. The 1919 is their buggy. I often wondered the origin of the term station wagon. Well, it comes from this period where wagons like this would transport people and luggage from the train station. Although this carriage wasn't produced by the Studebakers, this is the oldest piece in the museum. This carriage was Marquis de Lafayette, the Revolutionary War hero's Baroque. It was created for his tour of America in 1824 on the eve of our nation's 50th anniversary. The next carriage we will explore is part of the Presidential Carriage Collection. It was Ulysses S. Grant's Landau, which he owned and used during his time in New York. Although this wasn't a Studebaker carriage, he did use a Studebaker carriage during his 1879 visit to Chicago. The Studebakers obtained this carriage in 1910. Coupling this Lincoln Baroque and the chair he was assassinated in at Ford's Theater, which is housed at the Henry Ford Museum, give you a glimpse of Lincoln's last moments. This carriage is a 4-passenger Baroque given to President Lincoln by a group of New York citizens, believed to be after his second inauguration, and built by the Wood Brothers of New York. Although you can't see it in this video, his initials are on each door. It was just 5 days after the conclusion of the Civil War. President and Miss Lincoln, along with Henry Rathbone and Clara Harris, rode in this carriage on the night of April 14th, 1865. to attend a play at Ford's Theater, Our American Cousin. President Lincoln would become the first president assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. President Harrison would purchase this Studebaker and 4 others for his use as president in 1889. The Studebakers supported Harrison's bid for the presidency. This order from Harrison would signify the first company west of the Allegheny Mountains to supply a presidential carriage. President McKinley had the Studebakers make this carriage for him in the summer of 1900. McKinley would spend most of that summer in Canton, Ohio, where he rode this carriage around town. In September 1901, he rode this very carriage to the Canton Railway Station and boarded a train for the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. It was while in Buffalo, McKinley would be assassinated by Leon Czolgosz. What an interesting vehicle. This is Peg, a 1909 backward-forward car that was produced by the Studebakers. This vehicle was commissioned by the United States government for 2 of them, Peg and Tommy. They're electric vehicles to ferry people between the Senate Office Building and the United States Capitol via an underground tunnel. The tunnel was too narrow to turn around, so they produced this vehicle, hence the name backward-forward car, where they could control the direction from either side. This vehicle had a top speed of 12 miles per hour and could carry 11 passengers. It remained in service until 1912, when a rail system was installed. Peg is right here at the Studebaker Museum, while Tommy is on display at the William E. Swigert Jr. Automobile Museum in Huntington, Pennsylvania. Let's move from horses to horsepower. The Studebakers entered the automobile business in 1902, starting with electric vehicles, and then in 1904 with its very first gasoline engine. This vehicle here is a 1910 EMF 30 Touring. EMF was an early American automobile manufacturer. The company was named after its founders, Barney Everett, William Metzger, and Walter Flanders, using each of their last initials. They would produce cars for a short 3-year span from 1909 to 1912, where they would have the Studebakers sell them through their wagon dealerships. Studebaker would eventually purchase EMF and Flanders. Ain't this vehicle stunning? This is a 1904 Studebaker Model C, which also happens to be the Studebakers' oldest surviving gasoline-powered vehicle. Let's check out 3 promotional vehicles the Studebakers have in their collection. The first is a 1928 Commander Roadster, which established an endurance record in October of 1927 in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where it traveled 25,000 miles in under 23,000 minutes. This car here is a 1927 Commander and holds the transcontinental record. This car was driven by Al Jenkins, which left New York City Tuesday, October 30th at 8 p.m. and arrived in San Francisco Friday, September 2nd at 10:40 p.m. He covered a total of 3,302 miles for a total time of 77 hours and 40 minutes in this car. The last promotional car is a 1919 Big Six. This Big Six is still going strong after driving 475,000 miles. Here is a 1933 Rockney. Rockney Motors was a subsidiary of Studebaker Corporation and named for the famous Notre Dame coach Knute Rockne, who was also a sales executive at Studebaker. It was during the Great Depression that Studebaker wanted to produce a durable, inexpensive car. Tragically, Knute Rockne would die in a plane crash before this car was produced. Let's make our way to the second floor. In this showroom, let's explore a new era of Studebaker vehicles. Most in this showroom are from the 40s to the 60s. The nation was coming out of the Great Depression, and it was a period of low sales and losing money. It was important for the Studebakers to engineer a car that would help them survive as a company. The Studebakers' response was the Champion. The Champion would become one of Studebaker's best-selling models from 1939 to 1958. Specialty vehicles like this fire truck and zip van, the Studebakers would build the chassis and they would send them out to other companies to build the bodies. This fire truck was produced in 1928. During the war years, the Studebakers built military vehicles and aircraft engines and was a major contributor to the war effort, which we will see some of their military vehicles later in the basement. The Studebakers came up with the saying, "First by far," with a post-war car. The Studebakers would be the first major automobile manufacturer to produce a car for 1947. This car was often referred to as one of the most beautiful automobiles ever produced. This 1953 Champion Starliner was Studebaker's design masterpiece. After years of struggling, the Studebaker Company was bought by the Packard Motor Car Company in 1954 to hopefully revitalize both companies by pooling their resources. This is arguably one of my favorite vehicles here at the Studebaker Museum. Isn't this thing sweet? This is a 1956 Packard Predictor concept car, one of one, that was produced in 1956 to show the future of Packard's design capabilities. Unfortunately, only a short 3 years later, Packard would go out of business, and Studebaker 10 years later would go out of business in 1966. Now let's explore the Studebaker's military collection. The Studebakers provided for our military starting in 1857 when they supplied wagons to the U.S. government during the Mormon War. They would continue to supply the United States vehicles through the Vietnam War. Most vehicles in the military collection are vehicles produced for World War I.
Sometime within the next month or two, they're bringing an exhibit where it shows their early electric cars, all the way up until like the modern Tesla. So, because the Studebaker, like some of the cars that were out there.
Here's the 1951 Commander used in the 1979 Muppet movie. They added trunk-mounted controls, so the operator was hidden while the Muppet characters drove the car.
My mom, something like something on the loudspeaker, some dude said, don't touch it.
Yeah. That's on camera. That's why I'm going to